What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 26, our Charlie Asensio episode. My name is Zach Graham, your host here on the North End Podcast, joined, as always, by my good buddy, on record as my best friend. It's Ian Michaud, a.k.a. E, a.k.a. Lee James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew EC, a.k.a. Eastradamus, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. Chili Willy, a.k.a. E. Jan Stonkel. E, back from your weekend jaunt up to the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, an annual event for you. So first time you and I have conversed since you got back. How was the trip? I guess explain to our friends out there what you do up there every year, and then how you doing.
Oh, yeah, good to be back. Happy to talk about my groupie status for the band Murder by Death. I don't know if we got any Murder by Death fans out there. I was trying to think of a term to coin us collectively while we were there, because when you're in this small town, and I'll explain it a little more, the people who are a fan of this band very much stick out.
Sure.
So I was thinking murder heads, murder mittens, death minds, something. I don't know. I can't really come up with it. But essentially, for those familiar with The Shining by Stephen King and obviously the movie, there's a hotel in Estes Park, Colorado called the Stanley Hotel. Now, if you want some real background information on it, it was a very rich couple who moved to Estes Park because the husband had tuberculosis. Okay. So they were told that if he moved up there to the cold, kind of like dry air, it would help him with his tuberculosis. He apparently was cured.
Oh, wow.
They were like, look, we want to live up here now because we love it so much. So they built this extravagant hotel basically to have their rich, like, socialite friends be able to stay with them when they would come up to visit if they could.
Right.
So that is how the hotel got started up there. Then Stephen King, before he wrote the book, obviously the man is from Maine, was looking for a little more inspiration as to, his writing. So he basically pointed on a map and he landed on like Boulder, Colorado.
Right.
And Boulder's about 45 minutes south of Estes Park.
Right. In the vicinity.
He decided to go to Estes Park instead of Boulder.
Okay.
And just like the timing of this show, it's after the peak holiday season. Christmas is over. New Year's is done. So he was actually the only person at the hotel when he stayed there, which inspired the whole book, because he was basically just like walking around, wandering this place.
Right.
So that inspired the whole book with I won't, do any spoilers or whatever. But then 10 years ago, Murder by Death was like, hey, we want to do a show at the Stanley Hotel. And they've been doing it 10 years running. First year I drove from New York to Colorado to see them. It was like we did it in a weekend. We drove out 30 hours straight, saw the show, drove back.
Damn.
So it was good. And,
groupie status.
Groupie status for sure achieved. Yeah. I didn't get the commemorative 5-year mug because I was a little embarrassed. But
come on.
They had stuff for 10 years, people. And then they'll always do like, oh, who came to all 3 shows? And then everyone's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. So I'm not all the way up there, but I'm definitely in the group. I'm with the group for sure. Yeah. So everyone gets dressed up. Yeah, everyone gets all dressed up, and we go into the ballroom, and they put on an awesome show, and it keeps getting better every time I've gone. The visuals now are even better, and I guess this was my chance for the long-winded intro. But it's beautiful up there. I had a great time, and I will be there next year if any Austin FC fans listening are Murder by Death groupies.
Right.
You can party with me.
I should say, as somebody who was, before you and I were friends, had no idea, had never heard of Murder by Death. And then when you told me that was your favorite band, I would imagine most people, like I did, had a completely different idea of what the band, like what genre of music it was.
Yeah.
And so as somebody who has been now to 2 shows, not at the Stanley, but here in Austin, Texas with you, I would also encourage people, and I would love to get up there with you next year for year 11. So glad you're back, buddy. And we have some Austin FC news to talk about. Maybe not necessarily a ton of actual news today, but we can always sit here and talk about everybody's favorite team, Austin FC, for hours. And of course, we will try to keep this to about an hour here on this off-season edition of the podcast. And I really think this episode is kind of the calm before the storm. We are, as we speak here on Wednesday, January 18th, 3 days away from Austin FC's first preseason match out there in Florida against the defending Eastern Conference champions, Philadelphia Union. And then we've got games pretty much every week for the next 10 months, it feels like. And especially if they fill in that blank week in February between the 4th and final preseason match. We've got that blank weekend before St. Louis comes to town. Yep. And I did hear, I was listening to our buddy RB over there at the Texas Ring of Fire on their episode this week. And he was saying, yeah, I've heard some rumblings that they could fill that weekend with a preseason friendly at Q2. And I would not be surprised, certainly, to see that. So, we certainly won't break that news, but everybody paying attention to those Austin FC outlets will surely see if the club does announce a 5th preseason match. What we did get this morning was, well, I guess last night, really, they teased it. They sent out the little preview. The media team dropped episode 1 of the preseason series, Rooted in Austin, made its triumphant return. And of course, for us, like, we had to go through and look for things that, maybe could go overlooked to, we'll say, the untrained eye, or maybe just people who aren't super degenerate Austin FC fans doing things like this on a Wednesday morning. But I know both of us watched that video, a little over 9 minutes, I think. And I mean, right off the top, right, it just gets you, like, they could have just put out more still images. And I think it still would have fired us up. But, like, I guess I'll start here. The footage from the locker room post-game of the Western Conference final last year, obviously the 3-0 loss there in the Final Four. Don't think that was public at any point before now. That hit me pretty hard. I mean, and you are as well, as guys who have spent pretty much our entire lives in locker rooms and, like, highly competitive, up to the college level locker rooms as players and coaches. That hit me hard. Just like I know that feeling, the end of a season, especially one where you surpass not just the expectations from outside the team, but I think all of those guys probably surpass their own preseason expectations by the end of the year. So, like, as like gut wrenching as it is to associate what you're seeing on the screen there from the players on our favorite team with our own memories of tough losses like that, it also gave me some hope that, like, those guys, like, I think it could have been very easy for everybody on that team to say, hey, like, we made it farther than anybody thought we would. We'll be back next year. It's fine.
For sure.
But tears in everybody's eyes. Coach, choking up a little bit at the end of the clip there. It made me feel like, man, there is just even more fuel to these guys' fire this year. And, we've talked about and will continue to talk about what managing our expectations as fans coming into the year. But this gave me the feeling that those guys don't think that there should be any drop off at all this coming season. So I guess what your thoughts on the beginning of that video, because I thought it was powerful as an Austin FC degen.
I definitely agree. I thought it was very powerful. For those who have been in those situations in the locker room, post game, after a loss, and your season has concluded, it is no matter how well your season went, right? There's usually only one team that's really, really happy about what's going on at the end of the season. There's only one team who gets to end with a really big smile most of the time. It's a very somber feeling in there, and I really liked what Coach said. He put it in, he framed it well. He put it in a solid context where it was like, appreciate this moment for sure, which they all should have. Like you said, nobody expected us to be there. But at the same time, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're building something. He said, the nature of the business, the nature of this beast that is professional sports is people come and they go, and you got to have, some sort of collective for that 1 year where you're all together and you have those guys that are all pushing forward towards something, and then for it to come to an abrupt end because, obviously they didn't go into that game thinking that they were going to lose.
Right. Especially in the fashion they did.
For sure. And I mean, like you said, it's hard to beat a team 3 times. It's hard to beat a team that's definitely better than you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
In their stadium, in a Western Conference final. It was really powerful. It really got me excited for this year. I mean, Wolf said that there was going to be 11 months of soccer, essentially, which is just absolutely absurd and kind of pays credence to, what we've been doing in this offseason and in trying to, strengthen every position, bolster ourselves, get more depth for what's going to be a grueling year. And it's definitely going to be a challenging year. I thought that was I hadn't really thought about that, and I thought that was a really nice point that he made. It's going to be a tough year.
I agree. Because as fans, right, I think we think our season, or the season, I should say, not our season, the season is end of February to mid-October. Yep. But it's not for the team, right? The team got there the second weekend because our New Year's was a weekend, right? So it was like January 8th or 7th that they reported for medicals and physicals and all that. First day of training was like the 10th.
Yep.
MLS Cup final, I believe, is in December. So good point by you pointing out that Coach Wolf saying, it's 11 months of soccer that we have ahead of us. So I thought that was good perspective to have as a fan. And again, shout out to the media team. Yeah. And I think that was in the media scrum after practice. So also shout out to all those reporters out there asking the good questions and getting the good quotes out of Coach. I don't think we need to analyze too much more. Like the analysis, the silly analysis that we continue to do for basically anything that the media team is putting out right now will continue. You can see some of our random thoughts out there, artist eating by himself at lunch, etc. Nick Lima scoring a goal, things like that. And we hope that anybody who's, been checking those silly threads out is enjoying some of our nonsense. Because especially what feels like kind of the dead period of the off season, right? I think the Lundqvist trade, you're working on that name. The Lundqvist trade seems to be the end, like maybe not the end. We obviously have a senior roster spot open. Maybe we can talk about that here in a little bit. It's like we're in between like the exciting, like, is Tony going to post some more smoke? And like actual games. And like even games that are behind closed doors, like there's just going to be a different feeling abound, I think, among the Austin FC fans and just MLS fans across the country. The only other thing I would mention, I guess, from that video, I thought was, or that we didn't already make comments on the Twitter account, the stark contrast between young Danny Pereira in his fresh out of college apartment, unmade bed. We've been there before. And then going to John Gallagher's house, who I believe is married, doesn't have kids, but married, living in, looks like a freshly constructed subdivision house, everything in there, pristine, white, clean. Like it's funny to look, I think, at just the different, like, obviously we have a lot of different guys on the team. Every team, most teams are fairly diverse, especially in the soccer world. But just the different stages in life that these guys are at on the team, I thought was cool to see, and just maybe not something that everybody thinks about on the
for sure. Yeah, that can definitely get lost in it all. My only analysis on the Rooted in Austin video is just go watch it if you haven't, because it's great and it'll definitely pull your strings and get you excited for what's to come. Yeah,
for sure. And we expect, I would think, at least 2 more episodes of that before the season. I'm hoping we get one every week, which would give us I think 5 or 6.
Awesome.
But I won't be that greedy. I'll also say if anybody is listening to the podcast for the first time, we've picked up a couple, 2-3 followers in the last month on the Twitter account. We appreciate you being here. Some serious talk and a little bit more nonsense is typically what we get into here. So hopefully you've been enjoying any of the content that we put out there and stick with us through this 2023 season. I guess we can kind of now talk about where the roster stands. We talked about this obviously a lot last week with the Lundqvist trade. And we were talking also about the rumors, the smoke, so to speak, about a potential Rodney Redis outbound loan or transfer. Club Olimpia out there in Paraguay, I believe, was the club that was in those rumors. And then our boy, everybody's favorite agent, Diego Cerati, who is, for the uninitiated, the agent of, I believe, all 3 of Johan Romagna, Rodney Redis, and the departed Cecilio Dominguez. I believe he represents all 3 of them. I saw somebody, I don't know if it was in the Los Verdes Slack or not, but somebody made a joke that the South American scout for Austin FC was just Diego Cerati. He said, and again, this guy has been, I think, like, he's almost the stereotypical, like, he's the model for a shiesty sports agent. I think he was the one who initially, like, kind of started the rumors about, like, I mean, I know we remember last year when he said that Rodney and he had agreed to see him at another club, right, where he could get some minutes. And now he's saying that there's been no contact with anybody else. It's hard to trust, like, take what Cerati says, like, at face value, but he did say most recently that Rodney's not going anywhere this season. And so, we've seen him in training, looking happy. We saw him, he's trying to sap some of that goal scoring energy off Nick Lima in today's video. But if Rodney Redis is here to stay, that's 19 of 20 roster spots in the senior spots taken. Leo Väisänen is also still not here. So while we have, been bolstering the depth chart, it's everybody is not present. And I'll give credit first because we say everybody's not present. That's, I believe, what they call a segue in the business. The biggest name who is not present, and I'll credit Tim Thompson first, our buddy, we haven't met Tim in person. I hope to do so soon, but we interact a good bit on the social medias. And Tim pointed out, I think in response to some of our concern 10 days ago or so when we didn't see our boy Diego Fagundes in any of the opening weekend content. And we were corrected. Of course, Diego was apparently sick, sat out one day of training. And I am not on Instagram for soccer, so, like, I missed the club posting a picture of Diego on the medicals day, right? So he was there. People pointed it out to me. But now Tim Thompson pointed out back then, he was like, and where's Moussa Djitté?
Correct. Where is the Moose?
So then we asked the question again, and now we sit here a week or more later, and in yesterday's photo, I guess getting ahead of myself here, the team did go, starting this Monday, on their 12-day trip out to Florida, spending this week in Bradenton, Florida, where they will take on the Philadelphia Union. Next week, headed to Orlando, and they will culminate that week of training with a preseason match against FC Cincinnati. So the club went out, posted, of course, some great content for us to dissect yesterday from training, I believe, second day in Florida. First full day of training out there. And what we decided to go in and break down was this wide shot, almost a panoramic that they took of the team training. They've got the goalkeepers on the second field. They've got what looks like most of the positional players here in the at the forefront, I should say, of this still image. Tried to, do our silly thing and identify the rookies and who are the unknown guys, because there are some unknown guys out there.
Yes, they're floating.
And I will say we did also get confirmation this morning from our buddy Landon Cotham of Moon Tower Soccer, who said on his Instagram he saw that Micah Burton, our academy, I think probably our top academy player by most people's measures, back now from the U.S. youth camp he was at, and in Florida, posted a picture from Bradenton. So he is now with the first team as well. That's a great sign.
That's great.
Yeah, we love to hear that. And so Burton is there. He may have been one of those unknowns in the picture yesterday. Yeah. But still no Moussa Djitté. And we noted, yeah, unfortunately this time. Like typically we like him to be loose, but not at this point. We want him to be home here in Austin, or at least with the team wherever they are. It looked to me like then Hernan from We Are Austin TV. And maybe he didn't see our tweet like questioning the Moussa whereabouts again, because it's certainly not the first time that us or anybody else has mentioned that over the last week.
For sure.
But it looked to me like maybe he saw the end of the thread where we said, hey, Moussa's not here. Like, can we worry now? Is that okay with everybody? That
Do we have permission?
Yeah. Can we ask a question about the whereabouts of some of the good players on our favorite team?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
I hope so. I don't know if we need like a written permission slip.
Yeah.
Or if we just have to be direct friends with the missing players.
Yeah. I mean,
in order to have the information. That's
probably where we fucked up, is like we didn't reach out directly to the Austin players when they first got signed, and we're not close personal friends with them. So not allowed. But we went ahead and did it anyways, because Moussa Djitté has not been here. Then, like I was saying, I think Hernan, that guy, I've given him a lot of praise, I think, on the pod before for how hard he works on his content. It looked like he went the step to go to Moussa's Instagram.
Okay.
I think it was Moussa's Instagram, whatever it was a picture of Moussa training earlier this month.
Okay.
And I think he was training with other French league players. I don't know if there was League 1, League 2 over there, but French league players. Obviously, he came to us from League 2 in France. He found, and it may have been the trainer that he was training with, like he had posted the picture. Mm-hmm. Hernan said he contacted the trainer that Moussa was with earlier in January. Okay. And that the trainer said, I have no idea where he is. I don't know what's up. So Hernan's doing the actual work for us. Yeah. And we're not coming up with anything yet, I guess, as a group. But just kind of confirming like that, I think that can be taken as something, at least, like there's something there, right? And I think our first speculation between you and I, and then I think we also tweeted it back last week, but I think the most likely explanation, he's back home in Senegal. Yeah. Or to be honest, I don't know where I don't know if he's married, just has a baby mama, if he's with that woman anymore. Mm-hmm. But we know after the hat trick game last year, right, that he dedicated the goals to, I believe, grandmother, brother, and his newborn child, who he had not seen yet because he was in the States.
Yes.
For the season last year. So maybe he's just spending a little extra time with the baby, which would be great. I'm all for that, of course. But I also just want to know, you're going to be here, right? When we need you in about 5 weeks. So I'm hoping that's the case, but I think it's a non-zero chance that something's going on here.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot of dudes on the team with families.
Yes.
They're all there.
That's true.
Now, obviously, the situation is a little different, but I would also like to know what's going on. And really, I don't think I'm going to speculate too much and just try to sit on that. He will be here eventually in due time. I think it does hurt him. Yeah. Though you're not automatically slotted into that backup role with Giassi and Maxi there.
For sure.
Putting in the work.
Yeah.
So
and you can only do so much if you're training individually or even like with another group. Like being with
absolutely.
the team is you can't beat that. You can't simulate that fully anywhere else.
Absolutely. Even just from the standpoint of making connections with new guys, bolstering connections that you have with current teammates. Obviously, he didn't speak the language initially. Does he at this point?
I think he speaks French. And honestly, I don't know if the language they speak in Senegal is Senegalese or not, but I think he speaks whatever dialect is spoken in Senegal, or even just like maybe like there might be multiple languages there. I am uneducated about the area for sure, and any dialects that are spoken, but we know French is spoken by Moussa, right? And that's why we've seen not just the French-speaking players on the team be able to communicate more fully with him, but I think we even got a glimpse of his translator that the team has employed for him after that hat trick game on the Story of the Match video.
Yes.
So yeah, I don't think English is really in the cards for him at this point, outside of maybe a couple phrases that I think most guys probably have,
Goal!
Just like we, that's one.
That's one.
I guess the other thing to talk, if we're sitting here and talking about Moussa, is last year we know he was missing during Ramadan because he was fasting and doing all that. But we remember how much weight he lost.
Yeah.
And the few weeks it took him to not just put that weight back on, but get back in game shape get in form. And so I guess my question is, and I don't think either of us have the answer, but what I wanted to bring to the table was like, is that going to happen every year? Like, again, we come from like primarily the basketball world, and there are some very famous basketball players who either came into the league, Muslim, converted to Islam, whatever. Hakeem Olajuwon is probably the best example historically for a basketball player, at least playing through Ramadan. And and I was about to just go off on a Hakeem tangent and talk about how great he was, but like, I guess like bringing it back home, is soccer so much different, right? Where you cannot play while you're doing the fasting, which is 29 or 30 days. I think it's basically a calendar month.
Yeah.
And it's always during the season. So
true. If we want to do just a bare bones kind of poor comparison,
which is about all we got, I think.
Yeah. Moose playing up front. Obviously he's not covering as much field as our midfielders, our back line. Also, I mean, he wasn't always starting by any stretch.
Right.
Hakeem was probably playing. I mean, he's playing 38 minutes a night there.
Dude, Hakeem's stats during Ramadan, and I want to say at some points they were like playoff games.
Yeah,
like Ramadan last year was in April, and it looks like it moved. I'm not educated in this topic at all, but I'm looking at a kind of a Ramadan calendar year by year, and last year it started in April. This year it starts about 10 days prior.
Okay. So
I guess maybe that moves around. Islamic holidays always begin at sundown. Ramadan is the 9th. I'm sure this is just enthralling audio right now, but I mean, I guess just trying to figure out, is this always going to be a thing? Because if Moussa, the notable weight loss, that will take away from a lot of what he brings to the table up front with his body. You call him the body, right? And if he loses the body, what's he got?
Also, I mean, even outside of just that month, it takes him a while to get back into shape, back into form. So I don't know if this is, basically the only thing this comes back to is that we did not text them early enough to become good friends, learn French, Islamic holidays, and then reach out to him about it is all I can really come back to.
So I guess all that being said, we hope everything is okay, of course, with our buddy Moussa Djitté, the big body, and that we see him in camp soon.
Correct.
And we'll worry about Ramadan when the time comes. Moving on here. We also say we hadn't seen, or at least we hadn't correctly identified Alfonso Ocampo Chavez yet in any of the content released by the team. He was in the photo yesterday. So whether he was in Austin or not to begin the preseason, he's with the team now in Florida. So we like to see that. I assume that's a guy. One thing I want to do and have started on is trying to build out what we think the depth chart will look like for Austin FC2, aka the Young Boys. And I think we'll see AOC on both teams at certain points this year, and probably the majority down with FC2. And speaking of FC2, we kind of touched on this earlier. A couple of those other FC2 players are in Florida with the team. So that's a good thing to see. Because you would think, right, we've talked about all the other competitions that will be interspersed with the MLS regular season schedule this year. And we are no doubt going to need some, maybe not important minutes, but some minutes nonetheless from some of those guys who will primarily play with FC2, and being familiar not only with the system, but being familiar hearing Josh Wolf instead of Brett Utley, being familiar with the first team players, at least for 2 or 3 weeks here in the preseason, I think could go a long way. It certainly can't hurt those young guys when they come in and are called upon later this season. And I guess let's close it out with 2 things here. The first, we know that the MLS kits, the new kits, of course, every team with the Adidas deal that MLS has signed, every team in alternating years will get a new kit. So it is the home kit for Austin FC this year. The original Verde and Black retired. And so we did get, I guess, a little bit of a peek. Like, it seemed like we got the least amount of information or leaks out of every team, because there was even like somebody, I don't know who posted it, but on Instagram, somebody posted literally Evander, who's the new DP signing for the Timbers, sitting, getting interviewed at Media Day with the full new Portland kit on.
Damn.
And all we have to go off of is Emiliano Rigoni was the representative for the team at Media Day. All we have to go off of is his shorts, which give us something.
Yeah.
The shorts are black.
They are.
It does look like the collar you could see. So he's wearing this nice reversible warm-up jacket over the jersey in any photo of him from Media Day that we saw, which that jacket I'm sure will cost fucking triple digits probably.
Yep, for sure.
It looks pretty cool. It's reversible. It's nice. It's got the mint on the inside, the Verde and Black on the outside. Anyways, you could see the collar of the jersey that also looked black. So, of course, just raw speculation here. I think we may be getting a mostly black kit with, Verde numbers, accents, sponsors, whatever, which I think would be cool. Like a mostly black jersey with some Verde accents. So what are your thoughts on what you want the new kit to look like?
It sounded super black.
Yeah.
It's going to be hot.
That's true. That's a good point.
Hot with those.
Although that material, as an authentic Jersey man myself,
a man of class,
it keeps you pretty cool out there, and definitely doesn't have anything to do with drinking 4 tall boys before the end of the match.
Yeah, it keeps you cool when you're in the stands watching the game.
Super active up there.
Yeah, not run around that 100-degree weather for 90 minutes. Look, I am behind the 8 ball with the jersey game. Sure. But I was gifted a beautiful jersey for Christmas from my roommate.
Oh, that's right.
So I have that one now.
Yeah.
I believe it's an alternate of some kind.
I think you got the it was like one of those days in the MLS where like they change all the jerseys. Yeah. So it's like, I don't remember which one you got, but
yeah. And then I do have my custom Seba jersey coming in.
Oh, you got the Dior with the 10, right?
Oh, well, it wouldn't let me put the 10 in the name.
Oh, what? Are you serious?
So it just says Dior, and then we got the 10 on the bottom there.
There you go.
Yeah.
Love to see
So
it.
also with that, this might be, we're gonna have to get an online petition going here. We need a Seba song.
That's true.
And it should be Pop Smoke Dior. Can you imagine?
Fuck.
With the strings.
That's a good point.
Oh man, that would be awesome. Lamurga, if you listen,
anybody's listening,
yeah, do something. Somebody remix that for us. So yeah, I mean, I think we had our classic kit with the first one, the blocked kind of stripes.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't think they're gonna go all black with like some green accents. I really don't.
Yeah.
But if I had to put my money on it, I would say we're not gonna go pinstripe neither.
Right.
Like, I don't know, man. I'm not a fashion designer.
You're just a man of fashion, right?
Yes. Fashion forward, fashion sensible.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. I mean, February 16th. Last year, I believe was a little bit earlier, but it was again a league-wide date.
Yeah.
And looking back on how the Sentimiento kit was released last year, there was like a 3 or 4 day period before the actual unveiling of the kit where they sent out the email to everybody and like teased, like, it's called the Sentimiento kit. It's going to represent this, and we're going to unveil it in a couple of days. So everybody can look, watch your inboxes, I guess, for more info on that. Or maybe we get a leak, like some of these other teams have
Maybe.
gotten. And the other thing that I want to talk about kit-wise is kind of just to resurface this discussion that we saw happening this time last season, where the MLS previously, and this was like mid-2010s, I think, would allow teams to create a third kit if they so chose. And then when they brought that, they did away with that idea, I think in 2017, brought it back in 2021, but there was a threshold of a club needing 100,000 kits sold to have the right to create a third kit.
Yes.
Apparently, in 2021, the only club that qualified and decided to make a third kit was Atlanta United. Wow. And so the speculation last year was we wouldn't get one for 2022, but that 2023 could potentially be the year that we saw a third kit. And I went back and looked. Cap City Soccer did a article about this, or a post about this, and they referenced the Forbes article from November 30th, 2021, that reminded us that Austin FC had the highest merchandise sales in MLS back in 2021.
Wow.
I'm not surprised if we hit that mark again in 2022 with all the hype that continued to build around the team and the positive results that we were seeing. I'm also not surprised to see a team like LAFC with their double run, Bale coming into the team, Charlotte, who had a lot of great support in their first year. Not surprised to see one or two of those teams jump over Austin FC in those rankings, but they also, on the inaugural jersey launch back in 2020, we set the single day record for kit sales. So just all that to say, you would think we've surpassed that threshold in at least one, if not both of the seasons.
Yes.
If it's up then to the club to create a third kit, then we're at I wish it was like surpass that mark, you get one, right? So there was no doubt. And then we as fans would have control over getting a third kit.
For sure. Yeah, good point.
Get us past the threshold. So something to watch for. Yeah. Something to watch for, I think. Not to expect, at least this year. But I hope in the future that we get a third kit. I think it would be fun.
I agree. I'll get one.
And then our last bit in the Austin FC segment here, our boy, Adrian Healey. We talked about the initial list of Apple TV play-by-play and color commentators. No Healey, no Lahoud on that initial list. 2 hours before we hit record today, Adrian Healey himself breaking the news that he will be a part of MLS on Apple TV, which debuts on February 1st. So very much looking forward to hearing Adrian Healey, not just on any Austin FC matches that they assign him to, but, if we're sitting at home, road match, waiting for the Austin match to start, and we hit that whip around show, hearing Adrian's voice on any other match too will be nice to hear. And with that debuting on February 1st, they also released the guidelines from MLS and Apple that they gave to the clubs. And it pretty much looks like they're like, you see what Austin does? Yeah. Everybody else has to do that. Because when I think you read through those too, when we read through those guidelines, right? We're like, okay, check.
Yep.
Like we do that. We do that.
Yep.
So I think ultimately, right, that's going to be great for the league. And
Absolutely.
It's going to let doofuses like you and I get a much clearer window into some of these other clubs and what's going on there, and just enhance not just ours, of course, but every fan's experience with the league as a whole, and not just be contained to your home bubble, like we all pretty much are at this point.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, shout out to our media team, man, just unbelievable. And, we talked about the rooted episode earlier. We won't go back into it, but spectacular stuff. And welcome to the big leagues, other media teams.
Yeah, for sure. And like, dude, again, I'm going back to today's video just because I have to, like, the storytelling, right? And just like the juxtaposition of, like, specifically today, what stood out to me was the voiceover from Coach talking about the brotherhood, the family that they've cultivated, right, within this group. And you see kind of almost a slow motion clip of Stuver and Bersano, right, MLS vets, both career backups, and Stuver obviously until he got here, but older dudes, especially compared to the guy that they're joking around with, 18-year-old rookie CJ Fodre. Like, that clip was just like, media team, like, you gotta love them.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, let's real quickly jump through some of the MLS, the other MLS off-season news. Some big moves going on this weeky. I don't know if in your weekend travels you saw anything about the Chicago Fire's outbound transfer of 19-year-old John Duran. I believe it's Duran and not Duran.
Okay.
This is a 19-year-old striker who had 8 goals and 3 assists in just over 1,300 minutes for the Fire last season. His minutes really picked up in the second half of the season. And check this out. The sale was to Premier League side Aston Villa.
Wow.
For $18 million plus a potential $4 million in add-on fees. He was bought initially for $2.5 million, like 3 seasons ago, and signed as a U22 initiative player. Last season was his only time with the big league team. And so, man, we fucking talk about good business.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, like, and it also gives us a window into if Austin gets into the business of buying these prospects and then selling them on for large sums. We're all for it, but imagine trying to prepare yourself for that, which we will have to do again, not just in the future, but probably with some of the young guys, your Owen Wolfs, your Danny Pereiras, guys like that in the future. But I mean, 19 years old, not even 1,400 minutes for the club, and you turn around and basically 10x your investment on this kid in 2 or 3 years. It's tied for the second most expensive outbound transfer in MLS history with Alphonso Davies, who, of course, was transferred from Vancouver to Bayern Munich. And Chicago also sold, and we talked about this a few months ago, they also sold Gaga Slonina, the keeper, to Chelsea a few months back for up to $15 million. So potentially $37 million in outbound transfer fees for and I may be saying that incorrectly, $37 million potentially coming to Chicago for just those 2 young players.
Wow.
I mean, that is I think it's great for the league too,
For
right?
sure.
Because if you're a 16-year-old, 17-year-old phenom anywhere in the world, and you can see clubs like Chicago doing this for your career, you're coming to MLS.
Yeah, why not? Absolutely. Now, I think we've touched on this before, but you might have to jot my jog. I believe it's pronounced jogging.
Yog? Well, if only if you're talking to Eon Stonkel.
Where does that money go?
So, to my again, I don't think salary cap training camp has gone all that great this season. I don't know if I'm signing up again. I might have to find a new teacher other than myself next year. But I think you can in MLS move some of those fees into GAM. I think, but I don't think it's a large percentage. And so I think most of that just comes back to the club, and I think you can, you probably use it to pay salaries and build a new, I don't know, oxygen deprivation room, altitude training, like who knows? But maybe, and shit, if somebody listening knows what a team like that does with $37 million, we know for sure that you can't turn around and just use that on players. It doesn't increase your cap space or anything like that. Although like salary cap reform should and hopefully comes to MLS sooner rather than later. Got to get some of these cheapskate owners out of there over the next few years. Yeah, that's just great for the league and really crazy to watch from afar. And like even more of a reason that I am disappointed that Chicago hasn't come to Austin yet. So we could have seen not just Duran and Slonina, but Shaqiri and the other fire players that they have there. Columbus, our old buddies, Columbus Crew, signed Christian Ramirez, the U.S. national from Aberdeen in Scotland. He's 31 years old, had 18 goals, 5 assists in 50 appearances out there in Scotland for Aberdeen. He's got 2 U.S. men's national team caps, plus 35 goals and 10 assists in 105 MLS appearances, and that was with Minnesota, LAFC, and our buddies out there in Houston. Minnesota signed Swedish center back Mikael Marcus from AFC Eskilstuna. It was only a $250K transfer fee, but he's 21 years old. He had 46 appearances in the Swedish second tier, so maybe not a splash signing from Minnesota, but solidifying their back line there with the Swedish center back. Some LAFC news. We always have LAFC news in this segment. They rejected a bid from Saudi club I'm not even going to try this one. A Saudi club.
Is it the one that offered?
It's not the same one. No, it's not Al Nassr. But the Saudi club was coming after Chicho Arango. Okay. Oh. And Chicho Arango apparently is on the trading block. He wants a new contract for whatever reason. LAFC do not want to extend him. The bid from that Saudi club was $3 million. LAFC is asking for more than double that. I believe they bought him for $2.5 million. So like $3 million is like, that doesn't make much sense. And again, I think that if it was a non-MLS deal, again, only a small percentage relative to that, whatever, $6.5 million, whatever they're asking, could be converted to GAM, where like, if you can move them for $3 million in GAM inside MLS, you can immediately use that
for sure.
Those funds. But like ultimately, my takeaway from this is like, why do you want to get rid of Chicho Arango? Like that guy strikes fear in my heart every time we play that team.
Probably because they have a shitload of other players who are really fucking good.
That's also true. And an open DP spot coming up.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know why they wouldn't want to re-sign him, extend him there. I mean, I'm still just like the transfer money. I want to learn more about it because obviously we saw what Austin FC moved GAM-wise to move up in the draft. And it's pennies compared to $37 million.
Right.
Like it's absolutely nothing. So I don't know why they wouldn't extend him. They're rejecting this offer, which I mean, he must be a little disgruntled about it. So shoot, I hope it gets ugly.
Yeah, yeah.
Pop off, Chicho.
I am with you there. We talked about former MVP Josef Martinez to enter Miami. That is still not done, reportedly in the final steps. Houston signed Moroccan attacking midfielder Amin Bassi from FC Metz. He's a 25-year-old number 10, can also play on the wing. He's going to be a TAM signing. 26 goals, 16 assists, and 109 League Two appearances out there in France. So, again, Houston is stocking up, and on paper, I think certainly going to be improved. So again, we want to see that. We want that rivalry to be competitive, although we want to win more than we lose, of course, against our Texas rivals. Another LAFC bit here. They've received trade offers from within MLS for Mahala Opoku. The 21-year-old had 7 goals and 3 assists last season, appeared in all 34 games with the defending champions, including 20 starts. So, yeah, I mean, Opoku, one of those U22 guys, not moving yet. But, again, LAFC seems like they are at least testing the waters for multiple guys that played key roles for them last season. Red Bulls sorry, go ahead.
I mean, they're going to be active all year.
Yeah.
You know, and they're going
to be at or near the top, regardless.
They'll grab somebody, too, for a push.
Mid-season.
They'll be there.
Red Bulls finalizing a new long-term contract with Lewis Morgan, career best 14 goals, 4 assists last season, which was his debut season after arriving in the trade from Inter Miami. And again, Lewis Morgan, 2 appearances with the Scottish national team. Closing it out here, Charlotte finalized their DP signing of Enzo Copetti. Fee was around $6 million. He'll become Charlotte's third DP. We've talked about this on a previous podcast, the racing club forward, former racing club forward down there in Argentina. He's 26, 11 goals and 4 assists in 25 appearances this season for Racing Club. Kai Kamara, MLS legend, right, has requested a trade from Montreal. He's third all-time in MLS goals with 139, just 6 behind Landon Donovan for second all-time. He had 9 goals, 7 assists in just over 1,500 minutes last season for Montreal, which was his first with the club and his 9th club overall. He's 38 years old. I don't know who's trading anything more than pennies for a 38-year-old Kai Kamara this season, but I do imagine he ends up somewhere at some point before the season. But again, I don't think anybody's breaking down Montreal's door to go acquire him. And then the last thing, the LA Galaxy supporters groups are boycotting the Galaxy until they fire their GM. And let me try to find the statement that let's see, Galaxy.
That's ugly.
Yeah, so I mean, we talked about before. We talked about the sanctions that the league put on the Galaxy, right? And we talked about how their GM was suspended until, I believe, the summer transfer window.
Correct.
Chris Klein. That's right. Chris Klein is his name. Set to return to the club after his suspension, and the collective of supporters are not happy about it. Here is their statement that they posted on Twitter, the Angel City Brigade, and it looks like the other 4 supporters groups there for the Galaxy also signed this statement. Given recent news regarding Chris Klein's contract extension, that'll do it. Leadership
extended him?
Yep.
That's bad business.
That is bad business.
Kids, you listeners, you thought we only discussed good business on here. This is some bad fucking business.
It says, given the news regarding the extension, leadership of the Galaxy supporters groups have unanimously agreed not to attend any matches until change in the front office is made. We encourage fans of the club at all levels, whether members of organized support or otherwise, to join us in this action. The boycott does not come from animosity towards the players or coaching staff, rather a frustration with continued front office practices that have placed off-field business in higher importance than the on-field product. Our expectation is that executive leadership for our club will work with transparency, honesty, and professionalism. We demand that all involved have pride in our colors as we do. We will no longer tolerate the types of dishonest and apathetic business practices which have embarrassingly come to characterize our front office and executive operations. We will not return to the stands until change is made at the highest level. We promise to collectively ensure that our club returns to operating with integrity and openness as it has in the past. We will accept nothing less. That is the Galaxians, the LA Riot Squad. I don't know if that's the best name for a supporters group. Angel City Brigade, Galaxy Outlaws with a Z. That's more like an AAU team. And the Ghosts Ultras Galaxy. So first match up for the Galaxy is the El Clasico, or Trafico, excuse me, El Trafico. I don't want to get any of our La Liga fans upset here. El Trafico, of course, between the Galaxy and LAFC. That is set to be played in the Rose Bowl, and now potentially without LA Galaxy fans. So that is a quandary, not just, I think, for the Galaxy franchise, but for the league.
That is scathing.
Yeah.
That was, wow.
I've never seen anything.
Yeah, no, I have not either. I mean, obviously, we're not, soccer wasn't our first, love of sport. And, you don't really have supporters groups in NBA or NFL that are collectively, as organized as these groups. I mean, shit, more power to them. Honestly, extending that dude is bad business. Just a really terrible idea. And, that is something to definitely keep an eye on, because yes, that is bad for the league in its entirety. You can't have, especially a team in the LA market.
Yeah.
Not having fucking people at their games.
Yeah.
Like,
it's the Galaxy, man. Like, that is.
Yeah. That's storied franchise.
Yeah. Pop culture. Let's go Galaxy. Right? Like,
damn, you're really with your fucking Zardes tweet, you're really busting out the
the old references.
The mid 2010 movies there. What that one's role models.
Yep.
Yeah. That's bad. I don't really see it any way. I mean, you can't bargain with them other than firing this dude.
Right.
And I'm not too versed in sporting. Is he the sporting director?
I believe so. And I actually think Chris Klein had two. So he's the sporting director and the president.
Jesus.
Yeah. So it's like he's like a Claudio, Andy Loughnane.
It usually doesn't work out for people who are wondering. It's the Isaiah Thomas fucking it just doesn't work out. And I would assume, if he's the president, he's going to have some sort of buyout clause in his contract. You're not supposed to fire the guy cold without giving him anything.
Right.
So that sounds rough. Sounds like a huge distraction for the franchise, for the players. How are you going to be able to get excited for the season knowing your supporting section is not going to show up?
Yeah.
As a player. Obviously you can still get excited. For the love of the game and all that, but that's a big problem.
Can you imagine Q2 with just the empty south end? Well, imagine if something happened here.
Look, let's not give anyone any ideas, all right? Let's get past the Claudia situation.
Right.
We're moving on. I was very careful. Just fellas,
yeah,
don't get any ideas here. It would be filled with our friends, I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'd go down there for the first time.
Just two guys, just got a.
We can do our own Driussi Dior chant.
A symbol.
It says here, and I will credit the strikers, Alex Ruiz, who did a very good and thorough story on this Galaxy situation. Chris Klein took over in 2013 and was also extended in 2017. And that year, the Galaxy finished last in the West. So, I think this is not just born from the sanctions that MLS slapped this team with. I think it is a gradual. Now this is a decade that he's been.
Yeah, I was going to say, this does not seem like a knee-jerk reaction to just the scandal.
Right. And I have to imagine. The club I believe from 2017 to 2021, only made the playoffs once. That's just not up to the standard that a club like the Galaxy, I would think, throughout their existence, at least their fans, they have held that club to a higher standard than that. And so, yeah, man, it's just.
Aren't they also sponsored by a Ponzi scheme?
Yeah, Herbalife.
Yeah, okay. I was like, which one was it?
But I thought it was funny too, because you talk about naming rights, and Houston's stadium just got bought. The naming rights to the stadium just got bought by Shell, and so now we've got an oil club here in Texas.
God, are they going to do a deal with FTX next?
I mean, if we're talking about oil clubs, I would imagine that Lamar Hunt, since he had such a big hand in keeping MLS afloat early, I think he's oil money. So, like, there's probably a lot of clubs that don't have a ton to stand on if we're going to make fun of Houston for the Shell sponsorship. But, yeah, we've got Ponzi schemes. We've got big oil. MLS, baby. It's American soccer, and it's called soccer.
The fans are protesting, boycotting.
Oh, man. Well, I guess that'll go ahead and close out the pod here for us. A quick one compared to what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. And I think for what we have going forward, we have a lot of fun things planned to close out January and going through February, leading up to the season opening game against St. Louis City there at Q2 on February 25th. So we'll put out some more details about what we've got planned here shortly on the Twitter. But for now, we appreciate you tuning in here on episode 26 of the North End podcast, our Charlie Asensio episode, and we'll close out the pod by saying this: get well soon, Charlie. Charlie, absolutely. In a state the other day, posting a picture. So whatever happened to him picking up that knock, we hope it is very temporary and that he's back out there training with the team soon, if he isn't already. But again, if you've stuck with us through this hour-long, mostly nonsensical pod, if you've got 5 extra seconds to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening, or subscribing to the YouTube channel if you're listening there, hitting a thumbs up on the video. You can hit the notification bell to know when we post a new episode or when we go live, which, hint, that may be happening at least once between now and the start of the season. So we'll go ahead and say goodbye. Once again, thanks for tuning in. For I'm Zach. Until next time, everybody, vamos Austin FC. Goodbye.